Ferrari performed poorly in the qualifying session for the 2024 Formula One Singapore Grand Prix. Carlos Sainz crashed at the start of Q3, while Charles Leclerc had no time due to an error in Turn 1. This was undoubtedly the worst way to approach tomorrow's race. It's a real shame because the Ferrari cars had confirmed good overall balance, which inspired confidence, especially for the Monegasque driver. The handling tends towards oversteer, which, while causing some small issues, helps rotation in the middle of the corner. The key to making the most of this setup is carefully managing the surface temperature of the rear tires. To do this, one must avoid excessive wheel spin during acceleration or corrections when exiting corners. Just a few degrees of difference can lead to overheating, reducing the available grip of the compound. In the last practice sessions, Ferrari was far behind McLaren, having adopted a different strategy for warm-up, trying to create a different hysteresis process. The goal was to arrive in the third sector with the rear compounds under the maximum temperature limit. However, in the final section of the track, they often lost time due to excessive overheating of the rear. Moving on to qualifying, during the last attempt in Q3, there was a lot of confusion at Ferrari, especially regarding driver management. Carlos Sainz hit the barriers, while his Maranello teammate wanted to be the last to complete his lap. The Monegasque reported that he left the pits with a significant temperature deficit on the front. We are talking about 10 degrees Celsius, which is considerable. This shortfall is attributed to the team, which failed to heat the tires properly in the blankets. The tires lost further degrees during the pit stop before heading out. Once on track, in an attempt to raise the front temperatures, overheating took hold of the rear. Therefore, the lap began with thermal imbalance. In the first corner, Charles Leclerc made a mistake while trying to carry more speed through the center of the corner, but the tires obviously didn't respond as expected. During the lap, although there were no major mistakes, Charles was unable to maximize grip due to the worsening imbalance. One of the identified limitations is the behavior of the Ferrari on curbs, where McLaren has a clear advantage. The British car can almost fully exploit the inside curb, maintaining a better racing line for the next section. Ferrari drivers, on the other hand, couldn't use it too much without risking destabilizing the car, a clear benefit for the MCL 38. The English car has excellent balance between the two axles and, especially, very solid traction that made a difference. At that point, the correct management of warm-up strategy and tire compound during the dry lap becomes crucial. Lando Norris delivered an excellent performance. Conversely, Oscar Piastri slipped back slightly in the last Q3 attempt, while Max Verstappen unexpectedly improved significantly. Yesterday, Red Bull faced several issues, even radically changing the setup, as they struggled to find the optimal operating window for the RB20 on bumpy tracks. Instead of chasing their rivals, they opted for a more standard setup, increasing stiffness to lower the floor and maximize aerodynamic grip. This move didn't help the Dutch driver much in reaching his goal today. Mercedes also achieved an unexpected result after struggling during the final qualifying phases of the season. Today's qualifying was heavily influenced by tire management, as we understood, and the final standings primarily depended on how each team managed the compounds. The warm-up cycle and proper execution of warm-up were decisive in extracting maximum performance due to the level of grip achieved. In the last attempt, both Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen managed to get the red tires working better, maintaining temperature in all four corners of the car for longer during their fast laps. Oscar Piastri had a front row in his sights, but couldn't put together all the sectors. Charles Leclerc could have finished in sixth position without the error in Turn 1, but there was definitely potential to aim for the front while maximizing tire use. Ferrari therefore emerges from Singapore qualifying with a bruised ego. Expectations were high for the Maranello team on a track where they have secured 7 pole positions in 15 editions, but Saturday in Marina Bay went disastrously, with Leclerc and Sainz starting from the 5th row for different reasons. Charles Leclerc had only one attempt in Q3 due to his teammate's crash, who lost control of the SF24 while trying to warm up his tires during his outlap, hitting the barriers at the last corner. This unique situation condemned Ferrari to a mid-pack start, not ideal for a circuit like Singapore. At that point, Charles, along with the others, had just one chance, but his tires were too cold, a problem that also seemed to affect his teammate. Consequently, the Monegasque's SF24 was not ready for a competitive fast lap, going beyond track limits in Turn 1 and finishing behind Hülkenberg. Thus, tomorrow we'll see a red fifth row with Leclerc ahead of Sainz. Looking at the performance of others, Lando Norris will start from pole, closely followed by Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton. Certainly not easy rivals for the McLaren driver, who must secure a strong start to have any hope of competing for the championship against the three-time Dutch champion. Charles Leclerc is clearly frustrated with his and Ferrari's performance. In Singapore, the SF24 was expected to be competitive alongside McLaren, although in today's FP3, the MCL38 looked slightly stronger than the red car. Despite this, starting from the fifth row is undoubtedly disappointing, and staging a comeback on such a track has historically been very challenging. After qualifying, Charles Leclerc expressed his disappointment, noting that the tires were not even 50% ready. He explained that they left the pits with very low temperatures, particularly on the front tires, and he didn't understand why this had occurred. It had only happened once, during his last attempt in Q3. He tried to warm them up as much as possible, but it didn't work, leading him to lock up in turn 1, which resulted in a disastrous lap. He lamented that they had prepared extensively for that moment, only to have it go wrong. He also mentioned that they had the potential to finish first or second, but he had to take fewer risks because of the cold tires. He admitted to feeling very disappointed and preferred not to speculate about the next day, emphasizing that qualifying was crucial at this track, which left little hope for victory. Leclerc concluded by stating that he would reset for tomorrow and return at 100%, but acknowledged his current disappointment. Carlos Sainz fared even worse, also caught up in the same issue as his teammate. The Spaniard's tires were very cold at the start of his outlap, and having to stop to let others pass further dropped their temperature, sending him into the barriers and preventing him from replicating last year's pole, which led to his victory. Carlos Sainz explained that he had to let some cars pass in Sector 3, which significantly cooled the tires. He mentioned that they were already at a low temperature when he started his outlap, and he aimed for a good exit from the last corner, but he was too slow compared to Q1 and Q2. He tried to accelerate earlier to make up for lost time, noting that otherwise he would have lost a tenth in the first straight. He admitted that he underestimated the lack of grip and pointed out that there's always a bump in that area that can catch drivers off guard. Carlos acknowledged that he misjudged the situation, made a mistake, and apologized to the team. A rough awakening for Ferrari, clearly the disappointment of Singapore qualifying. Considered by many, including us, as a potential winner at Marina Bay, the Maranello team will need to revise their plans, as having both cars in the fifth row will complicate tomorrow's race on a track where the pace has been historically slow. Without a safety car, it will be difficult to gain many positions despite the 4 DRS zones. Leclerc and Sainz must roll up their sleeves and reset to be ready when the lights go out.